The hearth fire is burning low tonight. It is just peat and dried mountain scrub, burning with a thick, heavy warmth that smells of the deep earth. Down here, at the base of the crags, the air is different than it is up in the high attic. It doesn't whistle through the stone seams quite as sharply, but it carries the weight of the flats. It smells of salt, cold, dry, ancient salt, blowing off the wilderness for 1,000 miles. I have 3 pieces of willow charcoal sitting in the palm of my hand right now. They're incredibly light, almost weightless, like holding the ghost of a branch. When you rub them between your fingers, they leave this fine, velvety black dust in the creases of your skin. It takes days to wash away completely, but I don't mind it. The black dust is a comfort. It means another day has been recorded. Another journey has been smoothed out into the paper. The imperial law is very specific about this station. We are the last building before the white begins. When the wagoners come down from the mountain pass, they have to stop right here at this desk. They don't speak much. The salt takes their voices after a few years, makes their throats dry and quiet. They just hand over their leather-bound books, the ones with the neat columns and the black ink numbers, and I take them. And I lock those numbered books away in the iron chest under the floorboards. The Empire doesn't want numbers out there on the flats. If you take a grid into the shifting white, if you try to count the miles or measure the hours, the wilderness notices. And that's what the old keepers used to say. The mind begins to see lines in the salt storms, perfect glowing geometric squares, and stretch out over the dunes, leading you in circles until the water skins are dry. So, we use the smudges instead. Listen to the paper. It is rough, made from crushed reeds and river silt. It has a coarse texture that grabs the charcoal. When a wagoner returns from the deep latitudes, I open a blank page for them. I don't ask where they went. I don't ask how many horses they lost. I just take a piece of the burnt willow and I press it into the center of the page. A heavy, dark smudge, thick and dense like a storm cloud, that represents a long day of pulling through the heavy drifts. A day where the wheels sank deep into the salt. And then I take my thumb and I drag the charcoal outward, making a long, faint gray streak that fades into nothingness. That streak is the night, a night spent shivering under the canvas of the wagon, listening to the salt crystals click against the wood. No numbers, no coordinates, just smoke on paper. The travelers look at these pages before they lie down on the sheepskin rugs by the fire. They look at the smudges, and they nod. They understand the smoke. It matches the shape of their memories, much better than a number ever could. Sometimes, when the station is completely quiet and the wagoners are asleep, I look out the small window behind my chair. You can see the watchtower from here. It looks like a tiny, dark needle pricking the underbelly of the sky, way up on the highest peak. The light in the attic went out 3 nights ago. Usually, the astrologer's lantern burns a steady, pale amber until the dawn. But lately, there is only darkness up there. I wonder if they finally opened that hidden seam in the brickwork. Or perhaps they just packed the leather satchel and took the long stairs down. There is an old path that passes right by Orestes's hut. I can see his window from here too. A tiny dot of permanent orange light, nestled in the shadow of the mountain's root. It never flickers. The wind blows down from the peaks with enough force to overturn a heavy cart. But that little light in Orestes's window stays perfectly still. The wagoners believe that if you lose your way in a salt storm, if the whiteout gets so thick that you can't tell the ground from the sky, you just have to look back toward the mountain. Even through 100 miles of blowing salt dust, you can see that tiny amber speck. It doesn't illuminate anything. It doesn't warm you, but it stays. Let's take another piece of charcoal. This one is thicker, broken off from a wider branch of the willow tree. When you press it down, it makes a deep, hollow scraping sound. I'm making a mark for the man who came in at dusk. He was driving a team of 6 pale oxen. Their hides were completely encrusted with salt, white and sparkling like sugar in the lantern light. He didn't have any cargo. His wagon was completely empty, except for a single, large piece of dark leather. I recognized it immediately. It was a piece of whale hide, thick and heavy, smelling faintly of a sea that dried up before the mountains were formed. It belonged to the first voyagers, the ones who mapped the empty spaces between the stars. The hide was covered in those beautiful, swirling whorls, burned into the surface with hot silver needles. But someone had ruined it. Someone had taken a sharp iron nail and scratched a long, aggressive line straight through the center of the silver maps. A line that looked like a tear or a path. The wagoner told me he found it buried in a salt mound, 50 miles out into the latitudes. It was sticking out of the white crust like a frozen flag, he said when he picked it up. The silver burns were still warm to the touch, even though it had been sitting in the freezing desert for who knows how long. I have it sitting on the bench over there now. Every few minutes, I look over at it. The leather seems to absorb the light from the peat fire. It doesn't reflect anything. It just stays dark. A deep, heavy void in the corner of the room. The amber star is very bright tonight. Its pale blue corona seems wider than usual, almost like a halo of frost spreading across the dark velvet of the sky. When the star pulses like that, the salt on the flats respond, If you walk out just a few yards from the station door, past the hitching post, you can hear it. The entire desert makes this faint, musical humming sound. It is the sound of millions of tiny salt crystals vibrating against each other, shifting in response to the light from above. The wagoners called it the Salt Song. They say it sounds like 1,000 distant voices, singing the same syllable over and over, until the mind grows heavy and numb. It is easy to fall asleep out there if you listen to it, but you must never lie down in the white. If you sleep on the salt, you wake up with your pockets filled with gray river pebbles and no memory of your name. And that's what happened to the stable boys, the ones who live in the lean-to behind the station. They don't remember where they came from. They don't know the names of their mothers or the towns of their birth, but they know the charcoal. They know exactly how to press the willow twigs to the paper to show the difference between a dust storm and a clear night. They have their own language of smudges. Sometimes I find them drawing long, parallel lines across the wooden benches, perfect silent rows of dark charcoal. When I ask them what they are drawing, they just point up at the sky, not at the stars. They never point at the lights. They point at the dark spaces, the vast empty gulfs, where there is nothing but distance. They say the empty spaces are moving. They think the darkness between the constellations is slowly unfolding, like a great piece of cloth being shaken out over the world. Perhaps they are right. The nights have felt longer lately. The dawn takes an extra hour, maybe two, to climb over the eastern ridges, and the cold iron wind never really stops. It just drops to a low, rhythmic whisper, brushing against the stone walls of the station, reminding us that the wilderness is just outside the door. I am going to add one more piece of peat to the hearth. Listen to the embers. They make a soft, papery crackle as the new fuel settles over them, a warm, lazy sound. My fingers are completely black with the willow dust now. It has settled into the creases of my palms, like a map of my own small life here at the edge of the white. Every line, a day spent watching the wagons. Every smudge, a night spent listening to the salt hum beneath the star. The ledger is almost full. There are only 2 or 3 blank pages left at the back. I wonder what I will do when the last page is smudged, when there is no more yellow paper to hold the smoke of the traveler's journeys. Perhaps I will take one of the willow twigs, and I will draw a single, thick line from the center of my desk, straight across the floorboards, and out the open door. A line that leads into the white stillness, where the numbers don't matter, and the grid can't find you. The wagoners are snoring softly now on their sheepskins. Their breathing is deep, slow, regular, like the rise and fall of the mountain winds. The amber star pulses once, twice, a third time. The blue corona is fading now, turning into a soft, milky haze that blends into the dark sky. Let the ledger rest on the pine wood. Let the charcoal crumbs stay where they fall. The fire will keep its warmth for a few hours more. The peat will burn down to a fine, gray ash, silent and clean. There's nothing left to record tonight. The wilderness is quiet. The salt is still. Tell me, if you had to lose every memory of your past just to understand the silent language of the desert, would you give up your name to become a keeper of the smoke?